everyone, I am 𝓥𝓲𝓫𝓱𝓪 and welcome to our channel 𝓥𝓲𝓫𝓱𝓪 classes from the clear. So in this video, I'm going to explain the third chapter of the class 10th geography, and the chapter that we have here is water resources. So water resources. Now you know what that we have been studying about water resources maybe from class 7th and class 8th as well, and till now you might have a very good understanding about water resources. You know what, that 3/4 of our planet Earth has been covered with water. 3/4 or around 75% of the total surface area of our planet Earth has been covered with water, but in that amount of water we only have a very little amount of fresh water that is drinkable, that we can drink in our everyday life. So you could say that in this chapter we are going to talk about water resources in which we'll talk about water scarcity, about water conservation, and about water management as well. We'll look at some of the projects as well on water, that water bodies, and after that we'll also discuss about some irrigation methods as well. So basically in this chapter we are going to sum up all the things that we have studied till now and some kind of advanced information that has been given in this chapter. So you could say that in this chapter we're going to talk about all the things that we have talked about, studied about water resources. Now I think that you would have a very good understanding about water resources. As everybody knows, what are water resources? The most important for our survival, and there is a quote as well: save water, save tomorrow, or save water, save life. So you could say that we're going to sum up all these things in this chapter and some kind of advanced information in this chapter. So basically we are going to discuss about water resources from all the perspectives and aspects. So let's get into this chapter with our first topic, that is water scarcity and the need for water conservation and management. So water scarcity and the need for water conservation and management. Now firstly, let's talk about water scarcity. What is water scarcity? You know what, that's like about 75% of our whole surface of our planet Earth has been covered up with water, but in that amount of water we only have a very little amount of drinkable water or fresh water, and that water has not been distributed equally to all areas. You know what, that we, even after studying this chapter and many other chapters, you might have been thinking that if we have this large amount of water, and if water is a renewable resource, you know what, water is a renewable resource, as there is a hydrological cycle that we call water cycle as well, and water keeps coming, you know, that from groundwater, from surface runoff, there is a cycle of water or hydrological cycle. So you could say that if we have hydrological cycle, if water is a renewable resource, then why do we say that, why do we see in news and in many areas that many regions and many cities, many of the cities, regions, areas are facing the water scarcity, are lacking the water facilities, are not getting that much water that should be there for the survival of the population. Why is it so? Why in many areas there is so dry, like there is so much water scarcity, and why has it been predicted by many of the scientists that by 2025 around 2 billion people all over the world will live in complete absolute water scarcity? Why is it so? Now there could be some reasons behind it, that is of the water scarcity. You know what is that water? Whenever you think about water scarcity, what is the first thing that comes into your mind? Now the first thing that might come into your mind would be that you are seeing some desert areas, or some women are lifting up some mud cars or the earthen pots, you know, that mud cars that are earthen pots. So you could say that they are lifting some earthen pots for fetching water, or you might be thinking about some dry areas where there is so much drought and children are, you know, that longing for water. So you could say that these are the first images that come into your mind or our mind whenever we think about water scarcity. So first reason behind water scarcity could be areas having low rainfall and areas that are drought prone. Drought, that is, you know, that drought, that is dryness of that area that comes into that area. So because of these calamities there could be water scarcity in those areas. But beside all these regions there is overexploitation of all the water resources. Just think about that, even in big cities like ours in Mumbai Mumbai and many other cities of the world, not just in India, we have a large population and large water resources as well. But still in many of the houses of those cities, people still face water scarcity, or they still have to go a long way just for collecting water, just for buying water with a large amount of money. Why is it so? It is because of overexploitation of water resources in those cities. You know what, as population gets more and more, as ever increasing, you know that population is ever increasing, and that is why as population gets increased, we have a lot of use of water resources as well, not just for domestic purposes, but we still have other uses of water resources in our daily life as well. And that is why water resources are becoming scarce in the world, on the earth, you could say, not just in the world. And that could, you could say that could affect us in ecological ways as well, because we're not just having water scarcity for us, but we are also making it scarce for other animals as well, other habitats or animals, you could say, and plants as well. So you could say that could be one of the reasons. After that, if there are more and more population, they would need more and more housing facilities, water facilities, and there would be more use of water for them. And after that, what is there that more and more urbanization with industrialization. In industries, a lot of water is used, not just for running it, but also, you know that hydroelectric power is used in those industries. Many industries, all of the industries, not just many, all of the industries need energy to run, being run off, and for doing so, in many of the industries, there is hydroelectric power. In our country, hydroelectric power approximately contributes about 22% of all the energy generated in our country. So you could say that all of the energy, like thermal energy, nuclear energy, 22% of all the energy being generated in our country is from hydroelectric power, from water, you could say. So you could say that is also being used in industrialization, in industries and factories, and that is why water is becoming scarce. It is not accessible to all the people. After that, we need to have an equal distribution of water resources among all the people. You know that rich people are getting more and more, and poor are getting less and less. So there would be more and more kind of gap between the poor and rich. So you could say that we should have an equal distribution of all the water resources among people. But do we actually see in our daily lives, do you actually think that all people are getting equal distribution of water resources in our country? There could be more and more consumption by richer people, and you know that the top societies of our country, but not in the lowest strata of our country. So you could say that another reason for water scarcity. Now those were the you could say that those were on the purpose from the aspects of the quantity of water. But besides that, we have that in many areas there is abundance of water, and there is ample water that can, you know, that can satisfy the needs of the people, but still they can't use that water because that water is being polluted by the industries, chemical wastes, and through, you could say that through through pesticides and through many chemical activities, water is getting polluted. And that is why we could say that even though we have a lot of water, we still can't use it, as many of the rivers of our countries are getting polluted, and through that water is getting polluted. Now there is a lot of contribution of water scarcity of agriculture as well. As more and more population grows, there is a need of food grains, and for food grains we need irrigation, we need agriculture, and that is why more and more irrigation can be seen in our country. That is leading towards the water scarcity as well. So you could say that we need to have some techniques like dry farming techniques, and we need to do some farming, do agriculture that are drought resistance. After that, in many of the advertisements in the TV news channels or any other news channels, you know that any newspaper, you might have seen that many of the farmers have their own wells or tube wells. But is it really progressive? No, it isn't, because it is decreasing the level of groundwater water or the surface runoff, that could be a problem for water as well, water availability as well. So we could say that these are some of the reasons for water scarcity. We could say that these are being polluted. If we talk about pollution in water, in rivers, then you could say a lot of examples in our country. Many of the smaller rivers in our country have been completely polluted, and even bigger ones are getting polluted, like the Ganga River or the Yamuna River. In recent times, we might have seen in news channels like there has been so much pollution in Yamuna River in that region of our country. So you could say that in the capital of our country, there also Yamuna River flows, and there is a lot of pollution in that river. So you could say that even bigger rivers are now getting polluted too much. Like if you talk about Ganga River, we have Namami Ganga project as well for it, and in Varanasi there are so many ghats, and in those ghats you can see a lot of pollution in the Ganga River, but now it has been decreased a lot. So you could say that these are some of the reasons behind water scarcity, and by knowing these all facts, you might have been thinking that there is a need of conservation and management of water. We need to conserve our water and to manage as well how to use them. It is also equally important that we need to conserve our water and how to use them as well. These are some of the steps that should be taken by the government, by the people, by the citizens of our country. Now let's discuss about next topic, that is multi-purpose river projects and integrated water resources management. So multi-purpose river projects and water management, about water management. Now you know what, that there are, if we talk about water management or water conservation, do we really have some steps for it? Like we did discuss about water scarcity and a need for conservation and management of water. But what are the reality? In reality, what are the steps taken by the government to help in these methods? Now initially, from a long history, if we talk about our history, we have a long of evidences and long history, a kind of all those dams that were built of rubble stones, and we have many methods from a long history that have been preserved to conserve water. So you could say that from a long history, many sophisticated dams were built by many dynasties that we'll discuss later also. And you know what, that in our country many dams have been built for multi-purpose. You know what, that they are called as multi-purpose projects. Now let's discuss why they are called so. You know what, that initially when dams were started to build, they were for irrigation work, like their water was used for irrigation work in agricultural fields, but now they are used for various purposes, multi-purpose you could say, like flood control, hydroelectricity, making hydroelectricity you could say, and you could say that flood control, inland navigation, fish breeding and recreation as well. So you could say that all the dams that are built in our country are not just for one purpose, they are multi-project, they are multi-purpose projects. Now if we talk about dams, what are dams? Now dams are a kind of barrier that obstructs, retards or stop the flow of the water of a river, or you could say that generally it is on a river. So you could say that in river basins dams are built, and those dams act as a barrier that can obstruct, retard or change the flow of the river. So you could say that dams generally it can be made only in the basin of the river, and dams can be classified into many types as well. Now they can be classified on the basis of structure as well, like for example embankment dams or different kind of dams, like that concrete dams, hard dams, those kind of dams. And they can be classified on the basis of their height as well, like if they are major that large scale dams or small scale dams, on those classifications. And dams that are very important to conserve water, because if we have dams, now there will be reservoirs as well. Now dams, that is not the whole system that is being built on that river system. Now dam is just the area, you could say that just the area that we call reservoir. Now dam is just that area. After that we have a spillway in a dam. Now spillway, that is a main barrier, or you could say that, haven't you seen in the news, like water is being left from the dam, so that gate or that kind of barrier is known as spillway. And the water that has been you could say that has been conserved or has been stored, you could say, is the reservoir that we call reservoir. So you could say that is a structure of dams, and and that are the multi-purpose projects in our countries. Now in our countries there are various dams that can be seen in our country, like 𝓒𝓱𝓪𝓾𝓱𝓪 Dam, you could say that 𝓥𝓲𝓫𝓱𝓪 Dam. After that we have 𝓒𝓱𝓪𝓾𝓱𝓪𝓷 Dam, 𝓒𝓱𝓪𝓾𝓱𝓪𝓷 Dam, 𝓒𝓱𝓪𝓾𝓱𝓪𝓷 Dam. These kind of dams in our country, they can be large dams as well as small dams. So you could say that they are used for various purposes, and mainly because they are for various purposes, they can be helpful as well, as they are not used just for one purpose. They can be used for supplying electricity in urban areas. After that, water in the canals. Now you know what, and how is that hydropower generated? How is that hydroelectricity generated? Now usually what happens that whenever water is left, whenever water is released from the dams, there will be turbines in the water. So as the water flow at a very high speed, and what would happen, that turbine would get rotated, and as turbines get rotated, they would generate heat, and as they generate heat, it would be supplied to big generators, and there it will be converted into electricity or hydroelectricity, and after that it will be supplied to our houses or homes. So you could say that is how hydroelectricity is generated. Now for doing so, we are not wasting the water, because that water can still be used in irrigation methods. So you could say that is why dams are built. But in recent years we can see that there has been a lot of opposition of dams in various regions, in various fields, in various dam opposition fields. There have been many critiques, and you could say that they are right in their ways as well. And on the result of that, we can see different movements or andolans in Hindi as well, like Narmada Bachao Andolan or Tehri Andolan. So you could say that those are the movements or andolans against the dams. Now what would happen, that whenever a dam is built, a lot of forest land has been cleared off, and after that people would have to migrate from that area, because if a dam is being built, then it's obvious that it would be that people would have to evacuate from those areas. So they would have to leave their resources, their meager income, or you could say that meager occupation that they've been holding, and after that they would have to leave their houses, homes, settlements, those things. So you could say that is why there has been a lot of opposition, because dams are not just, there is not just one opposition of dams. There can be various reasons for opposition of dams. Like for example, if we talk about Narmada Bachao Andolan, now Narmada Bachao Andolan, that was started by an NGO, that is non-governmental organization, that is not under the government action, you could say. Now there were many NGOs, and its main focus was to protect environment. You know what, that there has been many trees that were cleared off because of this dam. It was actually against a dam that was being done on the Narmada River, that is the largest dam of our country, 𝓒𝓱𝓪𝓾𝓱𝓪𝓷 Dam. So this Andolan was against the being built of that construction of that dam. Now you know what, that initially it was for the environmental purposes, like to save trees, to save environment, to save the animals, but after that its main focus, it refocused, and now it is focusing on rehabilitation of all the people that had to migrate from those areas, that have to evacuate those areas around the dams that were built. So you could say that is why not just one Andolan can be seen in the countries, various Andolans by conservationists and environmentalists, by NGO workers, and many other people. So you could say that the dams can be harmful as well. Now those were the side effects of the dams, but are dams really fulfilling for what they are meant for? Even though dams are built, there can be large floods that can be seen in our countries. Like in 2006 we had seen a kind of floods in our country, in Maharashtra region, in Gujarat region, in those regions, and in Odisha as well we saw a kind of very harmful flood as well. And due to that, it will it would decrease the fertility of the soil, and would lead to land degradation as well. So you could say that it is not even fulfilling even its own duty. Like you know what, even though still today we can see floods being approaching in our country, and after that, whenever a dam is built, it has an impact on aquatic animals as well, as they will have a problem, because you know that whenever a dam is built, there would be reservoir, and in that reservoir, in the you could say the down of that reservoir, bottom of that reservoir, there would be so much sedimentation that would affect the you could say migration of all the aquatic animals, especially through the time of spawning. So you could say that, and also loses the fertility. You know that if there is a floodplain and if dam is built on that area, then what would happen? That there would be land degradation. So you could say that in our country, dam is built for good purposes, but we can see a lot of side effects, lot of negative aspects, negative effects of all those dams built in our country. Now in India, we have a lot of dams and rivers in our country. Like those dams are also known as projects on the river basins. Like we have 𝓥𝓲𝓫𝓱𝓪 Dam on Krishna River, we have 𝓒𝓲𝓫𝓱𝓪 Dam on 𝓒𝓲𝓫 River, we have 𝓥𝓲𝓫𝓱𝓪𝓷 Dam. You know that this is a project on mainly two rivers, on the joining of two rivers. After that, we have many projects like 𝓒𝓱𝓪𝓷 Dam, 𝓒𝓲𝓫𝓱𝓪𝓷 Dam, 𝓒𝓲𝓫 Dam, Periyar Dam, many other dams in our country. So you could say that not just one dam is built in our country, many other dams. And if we're going to talk about all the rivers, then there are many rivers in our country, like the Ganga, the Yamuna, the Godavari, the Kaveri, the Krishna, the Mahanadi, and many other rivers like the Indus, Chenab, the Ravi, the Bias, the Vyas, all those rivers that are present in our country. So you could say that not just one river is in our country and not just one dam is in our country. And on the basis of this, we can say that dams are the multi-purpose projects, but there can be many side effects, and we need to have more and more because they can lead to riots as well. Like in many of the cases, we have seen that not all the people are benefited from the dams. If those local farmers, tribal people are not benefited, then who are benefited? Now mostly urban people, big landowners and urban centers have been benefited from the construction of dams. And after that you know that in many of the regions, like drought prone regions, if there is any dam and if the water of that dam is supplied only to urban areas, even in drought situations, then obviously there would be riots as small land farmers would ask for it. And after that, it increases the gap between rich and poor as well, because it only focuses on the rich people to have first priority to rich people and giving less facilities to poor people, and would lead to a very big gap between rich and poor. So that is about multi-purpose projects. Now after that, we have got a subtopic, that is hydraulic structure in ancient India. Now hydraulic structures in ancient India. Now just as I said that from land history we had sophisticated dams built of rubble stones, there were lakes, embankments, canals for irrigation as well. So let's discuss some of the things of ancient India in which there were some methods for conservation of water, and you could say management of water more especially. Like if we talk about in Chandragupta Maurya period, in that period we had a lot of lakes that were being built, dams that were being built, so those kind of, you could say that embankments that were being built. And in 14th century, in 11th century, what happened that Bhopal Lake in Bhopal region, that is the capital of Madhya Pradesh state of our country. Now Bhopal Lake was built, that was one of the largest artificial lake during that time, of its own time. So when it was being built, it was one of the largest artificial lake, or you could say water reservoir, that was Bhopal Lake. After that, we have a lot of evidences, like in you could say that in BCs, in starting of the century, you could say that in BCs there were person that was 𝓒𝓲𝓫𝓱𝓪𝓷. Now 𝓒𝓲𝓫𝓱𝓪𝓷, who had a lot of contribution, a lot of methods for conserving water. So you could say that some of these names you should remember, some of these. Now evidences are that in regions like Banur, in regions like Kalinga, in regions like 𝓒𝓲𝓫𝓱𝓪𝓷, in these regions there were many dams or kind of embankments that were built by many dynasties, many people for conserving water. So we could say that not just in modern time we are just modernizing what day, but we should have a knowledge of history as well. That is why we have to correlate what we are going to study, whatever we are studying, to other subjects as well. So you could say that from history we can have a connection here, as from a land history we can say that a lot of conservation methods were there, but they were mainly focused on irrigation. situation. They weren't like there were a lot of floods there during that time, because there weren't that much clearing of forest, there wasn't that much deforestation. So you could say that compared to present time, there was just one purpose, conserving for water. But now in today we have a multi-purpose projects. Now let's discuss about another thing, that is rainwater harvesting. So rainwater harvesting. Now just now we discussed about multi-purpose projects, and we discussed about that they can be, they aren't that much successful in our countries, they aren't that much efficient in our countries, effective in our country. Now what would happen that one of the best ways to conserve water is rainwater harvesting, both by social and economically values as well. Now you know what, that even just for one dam being built on a big river basin, we need to have a lot of finance budget for it, and it will cost economically as well. But for rainwater harvesting, we don't have that much cost. Now rainwater harvesting, even in that we have a lot of conservation methods. You know that rainwater harvesting that is being followed by many people from our ancestors, you could say, from our parents, grandparents, and their great grandparents, and many ancestors, you could say, from a long generation, you could say. And that is why even today we have rainwater harvesting, and it is the best way to conserve water. Rooftop rainwater harvesting. Now rooftop rainwater harvesting is generally can be seen in arid regions and semi-arid regions of Rajasthan and in some parts of Gujarat as well. Now in rooftop water harvesting, what happens that rainwater is collected in the underground, but that has been transported from rooftop of your house to underground. Now there would be a system, it is not that just it would go to rooftop and just would be transported. Like there would be a big system of pipes, and underground there would be some nets for removing the impurities from water. So it is a kind of system that has to be developed, and it is not that much costly, you could say, not that much expensive, you could say. Now fourthly, what would happen that first shower or first rain of the monsoon would be left. It would be left for cleaning the rooftop and pipes. After that, all the showers of the monsoon would be collected, would be harvested, you could say, in the rooftop rainwater harvesting. Like you know what, that in Rajasthan there are many tanks or tankas that we call in those regions for conserving water, for collecting rainwater, because rainwater is considered to be the purest form of natural water, and in those areas it is also known as palar pani. Pani in Hindi term means water, so palar pani, that stands for rainwater, you could say. So you could say that in those areas it is considered the most purest form of water, and that is why it is conserved. Now in Rajasthan there are traditionally houses that you might have seen if you have gone there, or if you are from there, then you might have seen that there are many traditionally houses, and in those houses, either in courtyard or in the outside of that house, there would be tanks or tankas built for conserving, for collecting rainwater by rooftop rainwater method. Now what would happen that from many traditional houses we can see very large tanks, like as a very big room, like 6.1 meters deep and 4.24 meters long, and after that 2.44 meters wide. So that is a very broad dimension, you could say, and there can be very big tanks as well. But now what is happening that it can be generally seen in areas of Rajasthan like Bikaner, Phalodi, in those regions of Rajasthan. But now as the time passes, what is happening that it can be seen less in those areas, because now Înțărea Canal has been built there for perennial water supply. Now a lot of water can be supplied from that canal, and that is why not only water has been collected, rainwater is now being collected, but still we can have the traces of rainwater collection. You know what, that rainwater collection is a very important awareness step to be taken, because rainwater collecting, rainwater harvesting is the best way, I would say. I would guess you might have also thought about it. Now if we collect the rainwater is the best to drink as well. But still in Rajasthan, in many of the houses, fortunately we can say that we can still see many of the methods, many of the houses that are still doing the rainwater harvesting, or most especially rooftop rainwater harvesting, because they don't like the taste of the tap water. So you could say that rainwater harvesting is the best way to collect rainwater, because if we don't collect the rainwater, what would happen that we need to collect water, don't we? Because now that it will be scarce, there will be more and more water scarcity if you don't use the collection methods to collect the rainwater, and it is the easiest source to collect as well. Now, one of the good stories to encourage the rainwater harvesting is from a very backward village, that is the 𝓥𝓲𝓫𝓱𝓪 or maybe 𝓥𝓲𝓫𝓱𝓪 of Karnataka region, in Mysore region, that is Karnataka. Now, it is a very backward village, and in that village there are many houses, more than 200 houses, who have installed the system of rainwater harvesting, the system of rooftop rainwater harvesting. So we could say that it is a very good thing to know to collect water, and it is a very effective way to collect water as well. It won't cost you that much, and it would be more and more effective as well, because that water can be used in summer times. In any of the times you can use it for your own purpose as well. So you could say that rainwater harvesting is very efficient, effective and good way to conserve water, and it should be, I think that it should be make more and more, that in rural areas, in very backward areas, you can still see a large amount of rainwater harvesting, but in urban areas it is equal to zero, I would say. So you could say that there is a need of more and more rainwater harvesting as well, because that should be the goal of all citizens of our country as well, because there can be many posters, many quotes for saving water, that save water, save life. There are many quotes like water is life, and you might have seen some posters as well. So you could say that is because to collect water. Now let's discuss the next and last subtopic of this chapter, that is bamboo drip irrigation system. So bamboo drip irrigation system. Now this irrigation system that is known as bamboo drip irrigation system is more than 200-year-old system that is generally used in Meghalaya region. As all of you know that in Meghalaya region there are a lot of forest and maybe some rainforest as well. And what would happen that there is a kind of route that is being made by the bamboos, that bamboos that are very good source of transporting water, and they would be transported a very long distance of meters, and after that they would be dripped in plant roots. So firstly they would be slid up, and after that there would be roots, and if there are roads that are being used by people, then they would be on the by the tree roots, that in the air. It is not that it is flying on the air, in the air, but it is connected to tree roots. You could say that they are bound to the trees. So you could say that those are the routes for transporting the water from the bamboo splits to all the roots of the plants. So you could say that is also a very good collection method, of a traditional method of Meghalayan region for conserving water or for good transportation of water. So that's all we have discussed in this chapter. Now I think that you might have already known all these facts that we have studied in this chapter aside this bamboo drip irrigation system. Now didn't you know that about rainwater harvesting, about that dams projects? But yeah, we did have some advanced some more information in this chapter, but overall we had a sum up of this chapter of all the water that we talked about water in all these classes in this chapter. In this chapter we discussed about water resources, water scarcity, about 𝓒𝓱𝓪𝓷, the largest dam of our country, that is on the Narmada river in Maharashtra, Gujarat regions. So you could say that, and even on the bank of that river there is a statue, the largest statue of the world, highest statue of the world, the statue of unity, you could say. So you could say that that's all we have discussed in this chapter. Now in this chapter we talked about water scarcity, after that we talked about conservation methods, rainwater harvesting, about hydraulic structures in ancient India as well, and this is all we have discussed in this chapter. I've discussed all the topics and subtopics, and I'll be explaining the next chapters in the further upcoming videos, so stay tuned for upcoming videos. Thank you very much.